think we may be live. Let's see what's happening. All right, cool. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Coach Mannered Fitness. Today, I'm going to be taking you through the wrap-up party, essentially, for the Flexibility for the Inflexible Challenge. If you have any questions, any things that popped up for you while you were going through the following videos for this past month, go ahead and drop them in the comments below or reach out to me on Facebook or Discord in the Yoga Flexibility channel. And I'll be happy to answer those. Today, what I thought we would do is take a little time to kind of review all the different principles we've been kind of hammering home during the course of the last month, and hopefully kind of lay out that template for you for how you can continue carrying this stuff on moving forward. Do a quick test retest. So I'm in the lab right now, my office, my coaching office. So the first thing that we want to start off with is that flexibility is really person and position dependent, meaning that it's going to depend on like what positions are important to you. For this challenge, we picked 3, right? The toe touch, the butterfly sit, and the back scratch. The reason we picked those is because we felt like they were pretty global. They're global positions. They're positions that capture lots of different ranges from our hips and our shoulders, our big movers in our body, and would be a good indicator of just like a general level of flexibility. However, there might be things that you individually want to do. Like if you're a rock climber and you need to be able to get your leg up higher on a wall in a certain position, that could be a very individual position to you that you want to work on, but you can still take these principles towards that and then retest on that, right? Or maybe you want to be able to sit in seiza on the floor. So you want to be able to kneel down and sit on your heels all the way. Maybe that's the position you retest. So you can pick any position that you want. You can use the that we started with, but find something that's meaningful and useful for you. And make sure you're kind of checking in on your progress over time. Use this retest method to see what's working for you. So let's go ahead and if you're with me, let's go ahead and retest. I'm going to angle this down just for a second. So if you remember when we first started on this journey together, when I was cold and I was doing a toe touch, I could get maybe a quarter of the way down my shin. Now I'm cold. In fact, I'm pretty stiff because I did that high intensity interval training workout live stream last night, and I hadn't done something like that in a while, but I'm able to get onto my toes. That shows me that my baseline has improved over time. Depending on where you're at and in the course of the day, like we've talked about, function changes much more quickly than structure. So hopefully you're seeing improvements in your flexibility during the stretching session. And then as we repeat it and as we add these strength and other exploration elements to it, you're going to feel even better and like it sticks for you. So I feel like that's sticking pretty good. Then we have our back scratch where we reach around and grab. And this one is historically tough for me, but I can at least touch my fingers on each side. And what I've noticed the most changes for me is that it's easier to do it. I'm not necessarily getting a huge lot more range of motion, but it is easier for me. So that's, again, figuring out those quality of life changes is important too. And then the third one was our butterfly. And if you'll remember with my family history, my parents and my brother can't even sit like this comfortably. And this is comfortable for me. Even though my knees are up high, this is comfortable for me. So that's an improvement. And I can sit here and be in a better position. I feel like my feet closer. So again, overall, couple areas where it's very slight improvements that might feel more like how I'm moving my body. And one area I feel like I had the toe touch where I had big improvement. So that's where the retest is. I would love to know for you guys if you've done one or all of these, how your retest feels. Did you notice any differences? Did they stick with you, or did you feel like you felt better after this and then it didn't stick with you long term? Once we have that kind of retest information, we can start applying our principles. So what are the principles that we learned? First one, primary principle was learn how to set your position before you apply the stretch or the tension. So one of the big ones for us was that we wanted to make sure our hips were under us and our rib cage was anchored down for a lot of the movements, and then stretch at the shoulder of the hip. Not for all movements, but that was like a big one. Imagine the rib cage is half of an eggshell and your hips is half of an eggshell, and you're trying to keep them combined together, right? So that would be like an example of setting the position, then adding tension. The second principle was that we were going to utilize 3 different types of movements. One was active range of motion, which just means like making that full range of motion. The second was pulses, so go to the place where you're stuck and then do much smaller but controlled ranges of motion there. And then the third was doing holds in that position. So you can use all 3 of those, and any of those positions is going to help you develop more flexibility in that area. Third principle, make sure you go to your ability where it feels like you're doing some work, but not beyond that. And the breath can be a really good indicator. If you are really, really bearing down, holding your breath, that can be a sign that we've gone too far. So pay attention to your breathing. Doesn't mean that if you're doing something that's like a little bit more strength oriented, you might hold your breath and brace a little, but it's just something to be aware of. Like, again, there are going to be times you hold your breath, so it's not 100% of the time, but if you're doing it too much, it's a good indicator that it might be beyond our edge of our ability. And if we think about this, like we're trying to teach our nervous system, teach our body how to utilize these range of motions safely, and then we are like in that panic survival mode, most of the time, we don't tend to see like very quick changes in range of motion. So respect where your edge of your ability is. And then once we started getting to week 3 and 4, we started pulling out some of the big guns. Week 3, we were talking about once you get comfortable being in those positions, start exploring. And simply by doing head turns and nods and reaches in different directions, we were changing how the balance and stability worked, what our brain was paying attention to, and it was making big differences. That was the week where I really felt like I had my breakthrough. After that, when we started bringing those in, that's when I saw big changes in my range of motion just from kind of exploring and playing in those areas. Next principle, kind of the last principle that we covered within this series was that if we want to cement new ranges of motion, so we've opened up, our hips are open all of a sudden, we're good to go, and we want to keep it, develop strength there. So that can be done by like how we apply leverage and tension just with our body weight by adding an external load, and I showed a bunch of examples of that. But the more you can develop strength in a range of motion that is new to you, usually the better it sticks long term. The brain feels, and the kind of simplified explanation here is that imagine the brain now feels like, okay, you got this. I can let you have this because I know that you're strong here and it's not an unsafe position for us to be in. It's something that we use and something that we're safe in. So those are the big principles that we covered throughout. There were like 3 more things I wanted to touch on as kind of like wrapping up, one of which you've heard me say a bunch, which is that function can improve quickly, but structure takes time. So we've done this for a month. That's still we're really working in that function framework. We are teaching the brain how to utilize these ranges of motion that are already there. If we have a structural issue, like we have bone spurs or we have arthritis or we have like other things that is affecting the structure, it's going to take time in order to make changes. Stick with it, figure out what works for you, and keep doing it. Now, you'll notice that for this series, we released 3 videos a week, and there's a reason for that. You do not have to stretch intensely every day in order to make flexibility gains. In this series, we did 20 minutes 3 times a week, but we did it in a way that was really mindful of how we were applying these principles throughout. You do not have to stretch every day to develop more flexibility. However, and in fact, you might even say that if you tried to stretch intensely every day, you might get so sore with this way that we're doing that, where we're trying to develop strength, you wouldn't recover. It would be the same thing if you were doing a strength workout. If you try to bench press as heavy as you could every single day, your arms would give out, you'd start getting worse. Same thing here. Give your body time to recover, especially when we do these more intense strength sessions. That being said, if you can just move your body through the full ranges of motion every day, that's awesome. It's not necessarily like focus stretching, but just using your body in lots of different ways is a great way to go. And if you enjoy doing yoga every day or doing a stretching program every day, that's great. I'm just saying, there are other benefits beyond that. What I'm saying is, if it's strictly for increasing flexibility and you're an inflexible person like me, you do not need to stretch every day in order to improve. And I think that's kind of freeing to know that you don't have to like keep hammering your head against the wall. Now, not to get too far afield, but if you're someone who wants to get elite levels of flexibility, then maybe we have to do training more and more. It'd just be like someone who wanted to be a powerlifter and now they want to compete and be in the top 5% of their age group. Their training is going to start looking different as they go down the road, right? But if you're like me, I want to feel healthy, comfortable in my own skin, feel like I can do things without tweaking stuff, without feeling stiff, without feeling like my flexibility is limiting me. You do not have to do something intense every day in order to get there. And I think finally, kind of wrapping up, would be one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is, use what you have, start where you are, do what you can. I hope that if you're someone who's felt like flexibility was just such a huge struggle for you in the past and you didn't have anywhere to go, you have some really new and unique ideas to take into your flexibility training that's going to really help you feel great moving forward. If you have any questions, we're always here for you. If you want to see more content like this, let us know. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to work with everybody and see some of the posts in the yoga and flexibility group of people feeling like, hey, my toe touch just opened up, or I really felt this was like a really good position for me. Those things were great to hear. Keep them coming. And I think that's all I have. I'm going to post these notes up. These notes should be in the description. Thank you, Pamela. Notes are in the description. The notes as well in the Discord channel of like these principles that we were working on, the big bullet points. And I'll stick around for the next, well, as long as it takes, the next 5, 10, 15 minutes. If you guys have any questions, you want to drop them in the comment section, I will pop in and answer them. But I just want to say thanks again for being a part of the journey, and go Rebels. All right.